They never said sorry. Not once. But somehow, every single time. You ended up apologizing. You apologized for getting upset. You apologized for having feelings. You apologized for reacting to things they did. And the most disturbing part? You genuinely believed it was your fault. Right now, as you're watching this, there is someone in your life who has mastered one of the darkest psychological skills that exists. They don't need to apologize. Because they figured out something most people never realize: if you can control the story, you never have to take the blame. And what they do instead of apologizing is so calculated, so deliberate, so psychologically precise, that most people spend years trapped inside it without ever seeing it for what it is. Until right now. Stay with me. Because by the end of this video, you will never be manipulated the same way again. Let's start with the weapon. Psychologists call it DARVO. Deny. Attack. Reverse victim and offender. It works like this. You confront someone about something they did wrong. Normal response? Acknowledgement. Accountability. An apology. But a manipulator doesn't do any of that. Instead, they flip it. I can't believe you're attacking me right now. After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me? You're so sensitive. This is exactly the problem with you. Watch what just happened. You came to them with a legitimate grievance. And within 30 seconds, you are now defending yourself. Your original complaint has completely disappeared. And you're standing there, confused, guilty, apologizing. While they walk away clean. Psychologist Jennifer Freyd, who coined this term, found something remarkable in her research. DARVO works not because victims are weak, but because the human brain is wired to respond to social accusation with anxiety. The moment someone turns the attack on you, your nervous system prioritizes defending yourself over everything else. Your original point gets lost. And the manipulator wins. Every time. But DARVO is just the beginning. Because manipulators have an entire arsenal. And the next weapon is the one that does the most damage. Here's what makes manipulation so hard to escape. It's not one dramatic moment. It's 1,000 small moments, carefully constructed over time, until you can no longer trust your own memory. This is called gaslighting. And it doesn't look like what you think it looks like. It doesn't look like someone screaming that never happened. It looks like this. You're remembering it wrong. You're so dramatic, it wasn't that serious. I never said that. You're making things up again. Repeated. Consistently. Over months. Over years. And here's the neuroscience of why it works. Your brain stores memories not like a video recording, but like a reconstruction. Every time you remember something, your brain rebuilds it using available information. And if someone consistently tells you that your reconstruction is wrong, your brain starts doubting its own files. Harvard psychologist Daniel Shatter found that memory is fundamentally reconstructive, meaning it can be altered by outside input. A skilled manipulator knows this. Not consciously. Not always deliberately. But they know intuitively that if they keep rewriting the story, eventually you start writing it their way. And then you don't just apologize for what happened. You apologize for remembering it wrong. So you can't trust the confrontation. You can't trust your memory. What's left? This is the final stage. And it's the most sophisticated. Once a manipulator has flipped the narrative and erased your memory, they build something in its place. Guilt. But not ordinary guilt. Structural guilt. Guilt that becomes part of how you see yourself. I'm too sensitive. I overreact to everything. I always ruin things. These aren't conclusions you reached on your own. These are conclusions that were carefully installed through hundreds of small moments, each one chipping away at your self-perception. Psychologists call this coercive control, And the genius of it, if you can call something this cruel genius, is that once the guilt is structural, the manipulator doesn't even have to be in the room anymore. You do the work for them. You police your own emotions. You preemptively apologize. You shrink yourself before they even ask you to. And you call it being a better person. When actually, you've been turned into your own jailer. So how do you get out? Because knowing this isn't enough. You need specific tools. The kind that actually work against a brain that's been rewired to doubt itself. Here is what the research actually says. First, document everything. Not for anyone else. For yourself. Write down what happened immediately after it happens, before the reframe begins. Your brain's memory is reconstructive. Writing is not. Ink doesn't gaslight. When they tell you that never happened, you have your own record. Not to show them. Not to win the argument. But to anchor your own reality. Second, learn to recognize the pattern, not the content. Manipulators are very good at changing the content of every argument. Different topic. Different accusation. Different emotional attack. But the pattern is always the same. You came with a feeling. They made you defend yourself. Your original point disappeared. Once you see the pattern, the specific words lose their power. You're no longer arguing about what happened. You're watching a familiar move being executed. And you can name it. Silently. Calmly. There it is. Third, reclaim your reaction as valid. This is the hardest one. And the most important. Your reaction was not the problem. Your sensitivity was not the problem. Your memory was not the problem. The problem was that someone consistently used your empathy, your desire to be fair, your willingness to consider that you might be wrong, as a weapon against you. That's not a character flaw. That's a good person being exploited. And the moment you stop apologizing for being a good person, is the moment the manipulation loses its grip. Here's what I want you to know. If you recognized yourself in this video, that recognition is not weakness. It is your brain finally seeing clearly. Manipulators don't survive in the light. They survive in the confusion they create. And you just turn the light on. You're not too sensitive. You're not too dramatic. You're not the problem. You were just dealing with someone who was very skilled at making you believe that you were. That ends today. This is Brain Contraband. If this finally explains something you couldn't explain before, share it with someone who needs to see it. Subscribe, because every week we go this deep. I'll see you in the next one.